Hey Pokemon fans, Tamashii here. I get asked pretty frequently about whether or not I play games besides Pokemon, and whether or not I'd ever make a video about games other than Pokemon. Well, of course I do, but when it comes to making videos about other games, it's really rare that I ever find a game I love so much that I could find as many things to say about it. There are still quite a few games other than Pokemon that have worked their way into the deepest crevices of my heart though. So today I'll share with you my personal list of my top 10 favorite games of all time besides Pokemon. But first, really quick, I have some exciting news. I'm launching my very first t-shirt. They'll be available for a limited time, so please check out the link in the video description if you're interested. Now, on to the countdown. Number 10, Pangia. In case you're one of the many people who haven't heard of this game, Pangia is a Korean MMO fantasy golf game. I say fantasy golf because I'm pretty sure real golf balls don't do this. This is sort of an anomaly for me because I don't like sports games usually, I don't play golf in real life, and I'm not even really good at this video game version of it. But the adorable aesthetic and the accessibility of the gameplay has made it one of my favorite online hangout spots for almost 10 years now. Back when I first started playing, it was called Albatross 18, and it was handled by a different company. It's changed a bit over the years, but at its core, it's always kept the things that make it really work. The best thing about it is how easy it is to just pick up and play. You don't really need to know anything about golf to play it, and you don't need to worry about winning to have a good time. Yeah, if you want to be a high-ranking player, you do need to learn the finer points, but if you just want to goof around with some friends, whack a few balls through the air and dress up your adorable avatar, this is the perfect game for you. I've had some great memories through this game, and though any skill I've acquired over the years has definitely rusted at this point, for some casual fun, goofing off, and hanging out with people I love, this game is one of my all-time favorites. It's free to play, so if you're curious, check it out. There's also apparently a new member thing going on right now, so free paying! Number 9, Fallout New Vegas. I had difficulty deciding which Bethesda Obsidian game to include on this list. The Elder Scrolls installment Skyrim, or the Fallout installment New Vegas. Both are games that I've invested probably what amounts to years of my life in, but in the end Fallout New Vegas won out. Both games are really very similar. They're sandbox RPGs with similar skill systems and controls, but the settings they take place in couldn't be more different. Skyrim is high fantasy. There's a lot of colorful world building and lore, mixed in with a few familiar fantasy tropes here and there. Meanwhile, New Vegas takes place in an alternate reality, in which there was a nuclear holocaust sometime in the 50s, and hundreds of years later, civilization is still sifting through the rubble. Though usually not a fan of post-apocalyptia, in the end the setting of Fallout is what makes the game great. Not only does New Vegas take place in a boomed version of an area where I lived for a few years, it takes place in a setting that has meaning to me because of its real-life context. It's a universe I can understand because it's a corrupted version of the world I already live in, which for an RPG really works. What sets New Vegas apart from other games of its genre is the way it's always telling a story with its environment. It's not just running around and shooting whatever you find, doing quests and piecing together a main story. The mere act of moving through the environment and exploring in itself builds a narrative. Everything I do, every place I discover, every NPC I meet or kill makes me wonder what happened here. What was this person's story? Who did this teddy bear belong to? New Vegas is my favorite game to explore because it gives you the best reward for discovery, the urge to find more. Also, Chandler Bing plays Benny, plus 1 million points. Number 8, Spyro the Dragon Trilogy. I grew up at an awkward time in gaming history. I guess you could think of it as kind of a gaming puberty. 3D consoles were just coming out, and 3D platformers were the epitome of cool. Lots of 2D franchises were struggling to make the transition, and as a result, many died off or never really recovered. This is what I hear a lot of people focus on when it comes to talking about the consoles that made up the generation I grew up with. But it wasn't all bad. This change paved the way for some brand new franchises to emerge, my favorite of which was Spyro the Dragon. It's really difficult to find a game series that holds up so well from this particular era of gaming, especially since these franchises in particular didn't seem to have a very long lifespan. But everything about Spyro just works really well. The gliding and dashing mechanics save it from having many of the problems that plagued its peers, and the way the game is set up means collecting every last bit of treasure is still rewarding, but not absolutely necessary like it is in some of the other games from its time period. I'll admit this one has a big nostalgia factor for me, but unlike other games from my childhood that really don't hold up so well upon a revisit, the Spyro games are always still entertaining no matter how much time passes. After Universal took over, I never really kept up with Spyro, so I admittedly don't know much about what he got up to after graduating from the PlayStation. I hear he's still hip with the kids these days, which is pretty cool. Still, if you're looking for some old school fun, I really recommend checking out these games on the PlayStation Store. Number 7, Animal Crossing Wild World. Animal Crossing is a unique brand of addictive and endearing. It's not about accomplishing any specific end goal and beating the game, it's about setting your own goals and going after them. Do you want to expand your home to the maximum amount and decorate it just right? Do you want to catch all the bugs and fish and fill in your museum? Do you want to befriend all the animals in the town and earn their pictures? Or would you rather spend your time harassing them? It's engaging without being demanding, and the more you accomplish your goals, the more invested in your town you become. Though the core gameplay remains unchanged no matter which version you play, why I chose Wild World over New Leaf is rather difficult to explain. Going back to Wild World after New Leaf makes it almost unplayable, since New Leaf improves on basically everything that was good about Wild World. But why I prefer Wild World has a lot more to do with the context in which I played both games than anything to do with the games themselves. When I first got Wild World, it was a very different time in my life. I was in middle school, with lots of free time to spare, and I only played with my close friends locally, rather than utilizing the online function so much. It was an extremely intimate experience for me, and all of our towns grew together with the help of one another. This game was a second home for me for a huge period of my life, and I continued to play it all the way up through college. Fast forward to when New Leaf came out. The landscape of multiplayer gaming has changed quite a bit. Now with Wi-Fi being much more accessible, there's no shortage of anyone to play with, but it's a much less personal experience, and you can accomplish your goals so quickly there's less of a sense of progress and investment. There's less free time in my personal life to play it the way I did back then as well. Wild World just existed at the right moment in my life to really put down roots in it, and become something special to me. And for that reason it earned a spot on this list, even if realistically I may never play it again. Number 6. Kirby Air Ride. Most of the time I don't enjoy competitive multiplayer games. It's just not in my nature to compete, and growing up without a lot of people to play with, I never got much practice playing against human opponents. It takes something special for me to really get into a multiplayer game where I'm playing against another person. Kirby Air Ride has that something. For a kart racer, it has some of the most simplistic yet dynamic mechanics out there. You don't need to master more than the control stick and the A button, and yet the karts can do a lot more than just carry you across the course. This makes it really easy for newcomers to pick up, and since there isn't a lot of subtlety to the control scheme, veteran players aren't going to have an unbridgeable advantage over everyone else. It won't take you more than a few races to be on par with someone who's played for years. There's value in games that require mastery of complex mechanics like fighting games, but there's also value in a game that's so accessible you could play it with literally anyone you know on a fair playing field. For someone like me that isn't really concerned with becoming the best of the best, this setup is perfect. Of course this game has a standard racing mode, but the mode the game is most known for is its unique city trial. Here everyone competes in a free-roam arena, trying to build the best vehicle for an upcoming challenge. What that challenge is up to you to figure out, from hints that randomly appear throughout the trial. And usually these challenges will make use of a select few power-ups, where the rest will be useless or even detrimental, so you have to strategize. You can brutally attack other players and steal their power-ups, or even break their vehicle, and different vehicles have their own strengths and weaknesses to factor in. There are random events that occur throughout the trial, and there are so many variables in every game that I've played for over 10 years and no two rounds have ever been identical. I've played this game so much at some points in my life that when I'm just falling asleep at night and close my eyes, I swear I see top speeds just out of reach. Number 5. The World Ends With You. Let's face it, video games aren't always the best at storytelling. They've got so many important things to focus on, like gameplay and polish, that often things like the story and characters get left by the wayside. Sometimes though, all the elements align and a game can manage to tell a vivid and compelling story, and The World Ends With You is the one game I feel does storytelling the best. In the interest of not spoiling the plot, all I'll tell you is that the game centers around antisocial Neku Sakuraba, and is told he has 7 days to survive or be erased. He begrudgingly teams up with Shiki Masaki, and the two must fight their way through the city clearing out monsters known as Noise. From here on out there are so many plot twists and turns that I really can't say anything more about it without spoiling something. What's great about this game is that it's not just a story told through text boxes, though there's plenty of witty dialogue in the game. Everything from the music, to the setting of Shibuya, to the art style, to the character design, to the gameplay mechanics themselves, work together to inform the experience and provide a lens through which to view the actions taking place. The music and vibrant artwork really make Shibuya feel alive, and the system of having battles take place on both screens, utilizing both Shiki and Neku, gives the bond between them more meaning to you as the player. This isn't a game with a story tacked on at the last minute to give you an excuse to run from set piece to set piece. This is a game built around a message at its core, and nearly every aspect of the game, from the aesthetics to the mechanics, reinforce that. Almost every character introduced has an arc of their own and grows from the experience by the end of the game. This is the game that showed me what video games are really capable of when it comes to storytelling, and it set my expectations sky high. Number 4. Little Big Planet 1 and 2. One of the sadder things about growing up is realizing I will never experience the joy of playing with toys the same way as I did as a kid. Sure, I can buy all the action figures I want nowadays and my parents can't do anything about it, but they don't do anything but sit on my shelf. The only way I can experience the same joy I felt back then is by playing Little Big Planet. It's a simple platforming game, but with a toy box aspect to it. The sack things are essentially just dolls to dress up, and the levels are little play sets for them to explore. There are materials you can collect not only to decorate your sack thing with, but also to build your very own levels. When I was a kid, I built all kinds of things for my toys out of cardboard boxes, and the level creator in Little Big Planet lets me do essentially just that. This is where the game stops being just a game and transcends into creative outlet. I've spent collective days just building levels, filling them with detail and playing them from start to finish. And when I'm not making and publishing my own levels, there are probably hundreds of thousands of levels out there to play, of varying degrees of quality, of course. This is a game with endless content. And even someday when the PSN stops supporting PS3 titles, I'm sure I'll still play it and create levels just for me and my friends. Number 3. Chibi-Robo. My favorite thing about Chibi-Robo is everything. For a game with such cartoony graphics, that features talking toys, magical aliens, and middle school reading level dialogue, this game might be the most real experience I will ever have with a video game. The Sandersons feel like a real living, breathing family, and I feel like I've known them my whole life. The problems they have hit extremely close to home for me, as I was about Jenny's age when my own parents divorced, and some of my past relationships have had very similar issues. The way they seem so happy on the surface, with the big house and the dog and the robot maid, but have so very many problems underneath just rings very true, particularly when it comes to finances. I love how all the subplots revolve around solving problems for the toys of the household. When you're Jenny's age, toys have souls. Or maybe that was just me. They're what you focus on when your family is falling apart around you. They're the ones that keep you company, who witness your tears and your triumphs, who form relationships with you and with each other in your head, and become part of your family. In Chibi-Robo, their life comes from another source, but they still fill that role. They are family. The Sanderson household is in a constant state of disorder, and when your home is in disarray, it's a sign of chaos in your life. My home was extremely messy growing up, because my mother was so overwhelmed with raising 2 kids by herself, and not particularly well-behaved or helpful kids at that. The Sandersons aren't quite there yet, but at the start of the game they're on that path. Cleaning their home is helping them take control of their lives as their grasp on the reins is slipping. Cleaning their home is how you help them solve their much bigger problems and fix their broken family. Not every family gets a Chibi-Robo to take care of them and mend their cracks, but that's what makes this game so wonderful. It's the what if everyone wishes they had. Number 2. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. This is kind of an odd game to have so high on this list, because it's by no means a masterpiece. There are lots of things about it that just don't work. The dialogue and story are so cheesy they make me feel embarrassed to even play the game. And since the game has so many different modes of play, some work way better than others, and the ones that don't work fail hard. But the insidious thing about Sonic Adventure 2 Battle is that it asks you to form a relationship with it, and it's really easy to get attached. The scoring system and level design invites you to learn the game inside and out, and get really familiar with the levels. I've spent more time playing SA2B than any other single game, simply because it's so satisfying combing through the levels and trying to find the best route through it that will return the highest score. As my map screen filled up with A ranks, my relationship with the game grew stronger, and playing it now is like reuniting with an old friend. And the things about it that do work really well. The speed of the gameplay and the design of the levels create a sort of rhythm, and that playing well and hitting all the tricks at just the right time sort of feels like singing a favorite song and managing to hit all the notes just right. If it wasn't enough that the game really endears itself to you, there's the Chow Garden to really seal the deal. Really, the Chow system in this game is fascinating. There are so many hidden mechanics and so much to raising Chow that it's really kind of odd there isn't more to do with them besides racing and karate. And it's a shame that the Chow Garden has never made another appearance since. With the breeding system, the stat weighting, and all the different evolutions of Chow you can possibly get, it's almost like another game entirely tacked on. I got so into breeding all of my Chow that I even kept a family tree of all of them. Please, somebody somewhere, make another Chow Garden game. Pretty please? So yeah, even though this game is far from perfect, it's lodged itself in my heart and steadfastly refuses to move. So for that reason it's earned a spot on this list. Number 1. Katamari Forever. The Katamari series is beautifully simple. It's minimalist in every way. It utilizes only the control sticks and none of the buttons. The graphics are charmingly blocky and unembellished, and the story is never more complex than something you find in a children's picture book. But this lack of sophistication doesn't make the game shallow. In fact, it really creates the opposite effect. Behind the quirky novelty of this game is something truly beautiful. It's a game about the power of unity. Every item, every person, everything living or inanimate has no value on its own in the world of Katamari. The only difference between rolling up a human and a bicycle is that one screams. But even if these things don't have meaning on their own, when they're united by the Katamari, they can have enormous universal impact. Just by existing, just by adding to the circumference of the Katamari, they can make a cosmic difference and solve enormous problems. Even the cousins you play as don't have significance without the Katamari. They don't speak, and the only information you ever get about them usually describes some kind of flaw they have. Whether it be a physical disability, like their head rotating so fast it catches fire, or a personality flaw like vanity, or only messing up when people are looking. This is all we ever get to know about the character we play as. And yet, by using the Katamari to bring everyone and everything together, even they can still find a purpose and a reason to exist. Even if they're not talented or smart or attractive, they can still matter universally because of the Katamari and everyone and everything in it. Alone, sometimes it feels like we can never make a difference in the world. But when we unite, we have the power to impact the whole cosmos. And that's a powerful thing. Even a simple game like Katamari, or a mundane thing like a pair of chopsticks, can have meaning, and that's the beauty of this game. And there you have it, my top 10 favorite video games of all time. So let's see, looking at this list, I've got a golf game, a dystopian RPG, a 3D platformer, whatever Animal Crossing is, a racing game, a JRPG, a 2D platformer, a cleaning game, another 3D platformer, and a snowball simulator. Whatever you make of this list, it's just my personal taste, so don't take it too seriously. Let me know what your favorite games are in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you want to check out some of my other favorites, you can click here for my top 10 favorite Pokemon, or click here for my top 6 Pokemon generations. As always, don't forget to subscribe for more videos every week. See ya!